This is the Volvo C40. It's a handsome looking car, especially when you compare it to the Volvo C40 Recharge Pure Electric, which is basically its cousin or even its sibling. For that matter, despite it sharing so many similarities, in terms of design, the C40 really stands out. Now, in the 1 week that I've been driving this car, I actually had people walking up to me and saying, "Hey, that's a very nice car." That's what the Volvo C40 does. It attracts attention. But other than that though, it actually does quite a lot of things rather well. But before I tell you more, a quick word from our sponsor. Hey guys, we'd just like to take a couple of seconds to tell you about the BH Petrol's loyalty program. Now, this is unlike any other loyalty program out there because it does not require you to carry the card. That is simply very hard to find, especially when you need it the most. Now, with BH Petrol, all you need to do is download an application, go to BH Petrol, pour your petrol, take a receipt, and simply scan it with your application. You get 1 e-point for every litre that you pour. So the next time you're at BH Petrol, be sure to download the BH Petrol Loyalty Program application and you can immediately start to collect your points and later redeem it for the many rewards that they have. This is probably the biggest differentiation factor between the C40 and the XC40, this coupe-like silhouette. Well, the spoilers over here, of course, help to reduce drag and improve aerodynamic efficiency, and because the roofline slopes down like that, it reduces the overall height of the car by 70 millimeters. Volvo says that this too helps to improve the aerodynamics of the C40. By how much exactly? I'm not quite sure. There's no information about that. But the side effect of that is that the headroom inside, well, something has to be sacrificed. Unfortunately, it's the headroom for the rear passengers. Now, this is what I mean, that when I'm seated back here, I'm about 6 feet tall, slightly under. I only get about this much of headroom, like there's just this much between me and the roof of the car. And the other thing about the rear seats is that if you notice, I'm actually sitting quite upright. The back seat is actually quite upright. A bit more reclined would be nice. And the other thing is, there's not much thigh support over here. But I do think that this cubby bin over here that you can use for smaller items, your phones and such, perhaps your AirPods. Now this is a very nice touch. Well, it might be a little smallish at the back here, but for those of you who are, bound to spend a lot of time in the back seat, well, at least you get your own air conditioning vents and you get twin Type-C USB slots over here. So that's a nice touch, I think, making this place quite comfortable, especially on long drives. It's just a pity that the backrest is so upright. The thing about reviewing cars is that every car reviewer will have his own taste. Well, different likes and dislikes. But I think there's one thing that all Malaysian car reviewers can agree to is the glass roof of the Volvo C40. Now this is a permanent glass roof, which is not a problem, but it doesn't come with a shade. So the good thing about this is it does really well at blocking out all the solar particles or whatever that actually heat up the interior of the car. So it does really well at blocking UV rays. But if you're seated at the back here, the glare from the sun can be overwhelming, guys. So it becomes a bit of an annoyance. So if you're interested in the Volvo C40, the only solution to this would be to tint it, and tint it with something good that does well at blocking out UV rays, as well as keeping the sun away from your head if you're bald like me, or out of your eyes. Now, up here in the driver's seat, well, it's a nice touch. Well, I like the fact that Volvo keeps things simple and there's not much to distract you. but it also can be unnecessarily complicated. Why? Because there are simple things such as adjusting your aircon temperature or even your blower settings. It's a two-step process, which is, I think, quite annoying, because something as simple as adjusting your air conditioning shouldn't necessarily take your eyes off the road, which is what you need to do if you're going to adjust the temperature in this Volvo C40. I know this is across the Volvo range, but something as simple as a dial at the bottom would have been better rather than having your air conditioning controls located in the software over here. And then, since I'm on that topic, I also think that Volvo should have included an easy touch button and easy access button that allows you to answer phone calls or reject phone calls through a dedicated button on the steering wheel over here. So perhaps I'm missing out on something, but I haven't been able to answer any of my phone calls through Apple CarPlay via the steering wheel buttons. Perhaps there's some programming that is required. And I'm a big fan of wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but as you can see, it's still wired, so that's no fun either. But other than that though, this 9-inch touchscreen, well, it's quite nice. I think the software has developed quite well. I also like the fact that it comes with an Android-based operating system, even though I used an Apple. So this is actually quite straightforward. It's the basic controls are as straightforward as it can be. I also think that the meter panel, this 12-inch meter panel, digital meter panel, well, it's a nice touch for sure. It gives you the basic readouts such as speed and your trip computer. But other than that, despite it being so large, 12-inch is actually quite big, and it's nice because it gives you clear readouts no matter the time of day or no matter the position of the sun because of glare and such, right? So despite that, you can only have your map settings. You can have the map, or you can have your directions, or you can have your trip, but nothing else. So I think that's a bit of a pity and a bit of wasted space. A bit more information and letting me customize the way it looks would have been nice, I think. But other than that though, interior feels really nice, feels really good. I really love the Harman Kardon sound system. 14 speakers, guys. It makes this feel like a moving studio. It's really good. I really love the Harman Kardon sound system. It has added it has reintroduced some of my favorite songs and let me hear things that I didn't hear before. Another thing I want to show you is this hook. This Malaysians call this the teh tarik hook or the tapau hook. The good thing about this is that you can hide it away in case it looks a little too cheap. And when you want to tapau something, yeah. But it can only hold a maximum of 2 kg. So if you're going to be, tapauing 5 packets of chap fan, it's not going to hold. The other thing I really want to point out to you, and I'm quite eager about this, is this trimming. Now, when you get into a Volvo, the C40, and you might look at this and go like, what the hell were they thinking? Paying so much, you're just paying under 300,000 ringgit and they give you this massive chunk of plastic, like what the hell? But as soon as the sun comes down, this thing, they call it the topography trim, this thing comes alive when the sun goes down because it looks really nice at night. So it gives it a very nice touch, very peculiar touch. There's no other car that has this backlight topography, and I think that just adds a level of coolness to the C40. The thing about EVs is that because there's no engine, so basically there's nothing up front. But a lot of EVs, the Volvo included, offers you storage space. It's not much, but it's good enough for a laptop bag. So makes a lot of sense actually, especially if you got your kids in the car, you're probably going for a weekend's getaway. Now this is quite good. Now driving the Volvo C40, well, as soon as you get in this thing and if you're driving it for the first time, the first thing you're naturally going to look for is a start button. And there is a dead button over here where a start button used to be. But this is the all-electric range, right? So there's no start button, and I don't think I've ever driven a car without a start button. So how the hell do you drive this thing? So as soon as you get in, you put on your seatbelt, which you should actually naturally, get on the brake pedal, and you just select drive. You just push the thing, or reverse if you're in the car park, right? And tap on the accelerator pedal, and voila, the car is started. So how do you get out? How do you turn off this thing, right? That would be the next question. But it's also as simple. You just press P and leave and lock the car. The car will naturally just turn off. So the gearing system is actually the start-stop button for the Volvo C40, which I think is a nice touch. It keeps things simple. It's an electric car anyway. Power is always on, right? As soon as you get in the car. So what's the point of having a start button? Completely agree with Volvo on this one. And it actually comes naturally. If you've been driving this car for a while, it makes a lot of sense not having a start button, that is. But other than that, the inside, it's actually a very nice place to be. I love this recycled materials. I love the seats are really comfortable. But these are things that you would naturally come to expect of a Volvo. And even though I was talking about the software just now and the simplicity of the steering wheel and not having buttons and such, but after a while, it just seems to make a lot of sense, and it just becomes intuitive. And that's dangerous, right? But it's actually a good thing to keep things simple. But besides that, let's talk about the powertrain for a minute. Well, underneath this car, you get a 78 kilowatt per hour battery, which is actually really good. You get a pair of motors, one for each axle, which essentially makes this an all-wheel drive Volvo C40. So that's a great thing. I've been doing things I shouldn't be doing, especially in the wet. But it feels very planted. Of course, electric cars are heavier than internal combustion engine cars because of the batteries and such, as well as the motors. So it feels very planted, and you can basically slingshot out of corners. And I like the driving characteristics of the Volvo C40. But what I really like about the C40, and I think there are other EVs that have this as well, but Volvo calls it the one-pedal drive. I think I've produced a video about the one-pedal drive. So how does it work? I'm going to add a link to that video somewhere at the top of the screen over here. So basically what it does is, this is how you turn it on. Just this one-pedal drive. As you can see, it's turned on right now. I've not switched this off. I'm such a fan of the one-pedal drive. So basically, if I take my foot off the pedal, the accelerator pedal, it basically slows down the car and it regenerates the battery, which just is wow. It becomes, at first, it's a bit of a mind F, but because you really got to adjust your driving to accommodate this one pedal drive. It's a different type of driving with the one pedal drive, but after some time it just makes a lot of sense. So every time that you want to slow down, all you got to do is take your foot off the pedal. See, even right now I'm not even engaging the brake, so it feels a lot more easier to drive this car. But what is really fun about this car is the 408 PS and 616 Newton meters of torque, which lets me do fun stuff like this. Wow! So it's just an immediate burst of power. There's no lag. You don't have to wait for any turbos to spool. You don't have to wait for any of that. Just put your foot out and that's it, you go. 0 to 100, 4.7 seconds. 4.7 seconds, guys, in this small little thing. 616 Newton meters of torque. It's absurd what this car is capable of doing. But that's just the appeal of the C40. But then, let's talk a little bit about the charging aspects. Well, if you have a DC charger nearby your home, it's unlikely you have one at home. So if you have one nearby your home, on SSC2 cables, from 0 to 80% state of charge. takes just about 28 minutes, which is brilliant. On an 11 kilowatt AC charger, it takes about 7 hours, which is still alright. But if you're going to be charging it at home, now this becomes a pain in the backside, because I tried. So I was down to 60% battery. So I charged it overnight. I plugged it in at about 11 o'clock, and I woke up at about 7:30 to go check on the car, and it had only done, it was only up to 83%. So from 60 to 83, so 23% in how long? 11, about 8 to 9 hours. So yeah, that's just, charging this at home is just too slow, too cumbersome for that matter. But if you plug it in early, it should be fine actually. If you plug it in at 6 p.m, you want to get your car ready for the day, for the next day, then it should be fine. You give it a good solid 12 to 15 hours of charge, it will be fine. That's if you don't have access to a fast charger or an AC charger anywhere nearby the house. And that's, I've come to, no matter whichever way you look at it, whether you're an EV fan or you're not an EV fan, the C40 makes a lot of sense to me. There are a couple of things that, of course, have irritated the hell out of me, such as this glass panel. The back seats are not that comfortable. My son didn't have a good time at the back there. There are things like this. And again, back to the software, I do wish it was simpler and with more shortcuts and such. But then, when I get in the car and I put my foot down, everything about the C40 just makes a lot of sense. So every time I'm thinking that this car could be better, I put my right foot down. So at 289,000 ringgit, the Volvo C40 has begun to make a lot of sense to me. It's obviously a very handsome looking car. The design is probably its biggest appeal. That is, until you start driving it. It actually drives really well. I really like the amount of power that it delivers. Going about your urban day-to-day life is quite easy in the Volvo C40, very comfortable and such. About that glass roof, well, there's good tin companies out there, so there's a solution for that. But besides that though, what about interstate driving, you might ask? There are some members of the motoring journalist fraternity that have tested it. Some of them have driven it all the way to Penang on a single charge, and by the time they reached Penang to the next charging point, they were only left with 2 to 3% charge. So yeah, that was quite risky. Of course, there are charges along the way now, so you could juice it up before you reach Penang. But that's besides the point. I know somebody else that drove it to JB. Yeah, he saw that he's never going to do it again. So as an urban car, that's how I'm looking at it. It's simply perfect. But 289,000 ringgit is not cheap. But if you're willing to consider the Volvo C40 at 289,000, then there's another car that I want to tell you about, and that's the Kia EV6. It's a little more expensive than the Volvo C40, but check out our review of the Kia EV6. I'm going to add a link to that somewhere on the screen over here. So yeah, do consider the EV6 as well. But as a car, the Volvo C40, as an EV car, the Volvo C40 makes a lot of sense. 289,000 ringgit available in Malaysia right now. Thank you for watching. I'm Kashi Dylan, and this is The Piston Show.